between the 10th of October and the 17th of October. So it's a very, very contemporary poll when the battle began. 3,500 face-to-face interviews across 37
and
constituencies, a randomized sample taking gender and caste into account.
We just want to take a moment to explain the difference between our post-poll study done by Access My India and this pre-poll study. This is a multi-stage systematic random sampling where they are going only to 37 assembly constituencies and 148 polling booths. So it's not in every constituency. It gives you a broad sense of the issues which are very rigorously researched, and it tells you about the level of satisfaction, dissatisfaction with the incumbent government. So it's not really going to every single voter. We're not even making that claim, but it will give you a very definite sense of which way the political winds in the state of Bihar are blowing, Rajdeep.
Okay, let's turn to the first big finding of the CSTS Lokniti poll. The first big finding is the anti-incumbency tracker. Remember, Nitish Kumar has been Chief Minister now with a brief interlude for 15 years now. And what does the tracker show? 2010, 60% were in favor of Nitish. By 2015, it came down to 52%. Today, the pre-poll survey puts Nitish down to 38%. So from 60 to 38%. Against Nitish, 2010 was 30%. Remember, that's when BJP, JDU had swept Bihar. It comes up in 2015 to 42%. Remember, this was the poll where Nitish fought with Lalu Prasad. So the politics of Bihar has completely changed. And now in 2020, our pre-poll says 43% is what we are saying are against Nitish. With that, we also asked, what are the issues? What are the key issues in this Bihar election? And this is what the poll suggests. In 2015, the pre-poll said development was 31%. Again, remember, this was the poll that Nitish fought with Lalu Prasad. They are now rivals once again. 2020, that number comes down to 29%. Unemployment, and remember, Berozgari has become a big issue this time in Bihar. 9% in 2015, this time it's up to 20%. Inflation was 16% in 2015, it's down to 11%. Poverty 6% remains the same. Education 2% is up to 7%. The big shift, though, is in unemployment, and that might explain why some believe that there is this youth anger which Nitish Kumar is going to have to assuage this
From
time.
what we're seeing in this poll, Rajdeep, it's very clear that Nitish Kumar is no longer the Teflon-coated Nitish that he was for the last 15 years. A lot of his sheen, because of the migrant crisis, because of he's been in power for three straight terms, because he's jumped ship from the BJP to the RJD, back to the BJP. This is a man who, in the eyes of his voters, where he's been loved for a decade and a half, has lost some of that sheen. That's very clear, Rajdeep.
That's right. Also remember, Rahul, that Nitish Kumar is now the longest serving Chief Minister of any North Indian state.
Sure.
I mean, 15 years with just one small gap when Jitin Ram Majhi was Chief Minister. Nitish Kumar has dominated Bihar politics for a long time. So from February 2005, when he first appeared to scent power, that was a very short-lived government, to today, where he's hoping to win another 5-year term. That's a pretty 15 years of very
At the
long
end of
time.
15 years, Sheila Dikshit was almost toxic in the eyes of the voters of Delhi. They wanted her out.
That's
so
right.
in that sense, if you compared with someone who was once popular like a Sheila Dikshit, Nitish Kumar still maintains some level of popularity. But if you look at the next data sets that's coming on your screen right now, and this is to do with who voters want as the next Chief Minister of the state of Bihar. 31% of the respondents say they want Nitish Kumar as the next Chief Minister. But look at Tejaswi Yadav. You know, he was dismissed by his critics as being a greenhorn, as being an unwilling politician, as a Dinist who wasn't really going out in the manner that Lalu Yadav did, but he's just 4% away. And if to that 27%, we add the 3% residual vote that Lalu Yadav still gets, then the Lalu family is 30% vis-a-vis 31% of Nitish Kumar. Earlier, Rajdeep, Nitish Kumar was heads and shoulders ahead of anybody else in the state of Bihar. The 30-year-old young Tejaswi Yadav is already caught up, and there's only a 4% gap. And if I add Lalu, then that's 30. That's a 1% gap then.
That's right. And if you look at 31%, it clearly suggests that, you know, unlike, say, particularly 10 years ago, when Nitish was the overwhelming choice for chief minister, he now has opposition. Add Lalu, as you said, 27 and 3, that's 30. Add Chirag Paswan, 5%. Remember, he's campaigning on an anti-Nitish plan. Clearly suggests that there is, as we've been saying, not just a residue of anti-incumbency, there's a substantial amount of anti-Nitish feeling on the ground, which the likes of Tejaswi are hoping to capitalize on.
But given how much criticism Tejaswi Yadav has come in for, given the fact that, you know, during COVID and even otherwise, people said, nikalta nahi hai, ghar mein baithta hai, 11 baje tak jag ke nikalta hai. In comparison, the data seems to suggest that Tejaswi Yadav has been able to build himself up in the esteem of the voters of Bihar and has emerged as a successor of Lalu Yadav, at least in the eyes of those who say they'll vote for the Gadbandhan.
With one caveat, Rahul, they have no option. You know, at the moment, there is no other opposition leader who has carried any kind of credibility. So the entire Lalu vote, in a sense, is transferring to Tejaswi. So he can now claim with these numbers that he's emerging as an inheritor of the Lalu vote. But that may not be enough, because that means you are the inheritor of the traditional Muslim Yadav combine of Lalu Prasad, but you may not emerge, you need MY plus, and that may not happen with Tejaswi Yadav.
So we'll come to the vote share and the seat share in a bit, but what we can see right now is that Nitish Kumar's stature is diminished. As Rajdeep says, because there is no one else and Tejaswi is the opposition's chief ministerial face, his popularity seems to be catching up. Let's now introduce the guests joining us on this special broadcast.